when the stars asked for mercy. The galaxy did not fear war. War was mathematics. War was predictable. War was loss ratios, fleet formations, energy output curves, and surrender probabilities calculated before the first shot was fired. The galaxy understood war. What it did not understand: mercy. In the outer spiral arm of the Perseid Reach, beyond the trade corridors and diplomatic hubs, there was a quiet, unremarkable yellow star. Its third planet was catalogued as atmosphere, nitrogen-oxygen, dominant species, carbon-based, bipedal, technological level, emerging interstellar. The file was thin. The analysts of the Concord of Unified Civilizations had dismissed it centuries ago as statistically unlikely to matter. They were wrong. The first contact did not come with warships. It came with refugees. A fleet of shattered vessels tore out of slipspace at the edge of the Sol system, engines failing, hulls breached, life signs flickering. They were tall, silver-skinned beings with luminous veins and elongated limbs, a species known for art, diplomacy, and pacifism. Their civilization had spanned 12 systems. Behind them, a shadow followed, the Karthuun Dominion. The Karthuun did not conquer for resources. They conquered for violence. They believed the universe was sacred in its emptiness, and that intelligent life was a mistake that needed correction. System by system, they erased civilizations. They did not negotiate. They did not enslave. They annihilated. And now they were coming. Earth detected the Varithi fleet 3 hours after their emergence. 3 hours later, global panic began. 3 hours after that, the first emergency summit of the United Earth Coalition was called. There were arguments. There were threats. There were accusations. We cannot risk planetary security. We cannot provoke a superior hostile force. We cannot absorb an alien refugee population. The debate lasted 11 minutes. Then, the transition came. It was not translated at first. It was broken, fragmented. But one thing became clear immediately. The Varithi were broadcasting the same message on every frequency, a distress call, and a live feed of Karthuun ships closing in, black, angular, endless. Earth's telescopes magnified the image, thousands of them. There is a moment in history where a species decides what it will be. For humanity, that moment came quietly. A single vote, by a margin of 1. Earth would grant asylum, and Earth would defend them. The Varithi ships limped toward Earth orbit, engines dying one by one. Human fleets, still crewed by galactic standards, rose to meet them. Nuclear-armed carriers, railgun destroyers, experimental plasma frigates. But the Karthuun fleet exited slipspace like a wound opening in reality. They outnumbered humanity 5-1. Their ships dwarfed Earth's largest vessels. Their weapons could crack moons, and they sent a single transmission: relinquish the Varithi. Your extinction will be swift. The United Earth Coalition did not respond with words. They responded with coordinates. Defensive perimeter established. The first volley from the Karthuun was surgical. 3 human destroyers vanished in pillars of white light. No debris. No survivors. Human command faltered for 6 seconds. Then something ancient and uniquely human happened. Civilian satellites were redirected as decoys. Mining vessels were converted into kinetic battering rams. Asteroid mining rigs were overloaded and flung into enemy formations. The Karthuun had studied thousands of species. They had cataloged tactics. They had relations. They did not have simulations for humans. Because humans did not fight like civilizations. They fought like desperate, inventive primates who had clawed their way up from extinction-level events more than once. They fought dirty. They fought creatively. They thought they had something to protect. On the surface of Earth, billions watched the sky burn. The Varithi refugees watched too. They expected Earth to surrender within the hour. Statistically, it was inevitable. Instead, Earth escalated. A classified project long debated, long feared, was authorized. Project Aegis. Humanity's first gravity lens weapon, a weapon designed not to destroy ships directly, but to distort space-time around them. The energy requirements were catastrophic, the risks unknown. The weapon fired once, and an entire Karthuun battle cluster twisted inward like paper in a fist. 10 capital ships collapsed into singularity fragments. The galaxy felt it. The shockwave rippled across subspace. The Karthuun hesitated. For the first time in their recorded history, they encountered resistance that hurt, but Dominion, not retreat. They sent reinforcements. The battle stretched into days. Human losses mounted. Cities prepared for orbital bombardment. The Varithi pleaded with Earth to surrender them. Your survival probability decreases exponentially. We cannot justify sacrifice. Humanity responded with something the Varithi could not quantify. It was not strategic. It was logical. It's human. On the fourth day, the Karthuun deployed planet killers, massive vessels designed to crack tectonic plates and ignite atmospheres. Earth's fleets were exhausted. Aegis could not recharge in time. Defeat loomed. And then humanity did something unprecedented. They opened every communication channel across the galaxy, every frequency, every relay, and they broadcast the battle live. They showed refugees. They showed human ships breaking apart. They showed Earth standing alone. And they transmitted one message. If we fall, you're next. The concord of unified civilizations watched. For centuries, they had appeased the Karthuun, sacrificed border systems, paid, hoped, spared. Now they watched a primitive species defy annihilation for strangers. Something shifted, because fear maintains empires, but courage inspires rebellions. The first reinforcements to arrive were not fleets. They were signals, encrypted targeting data, shield modulation frequencies, weakness analyses. Then ships, Varithi medical cruisers, repaired to assist. Then the RAL, then collective. Then the Mire Dominion, former rivals of Earth in trade disputes. One by one, civilizations that had hidden stepped forward. The Karthuun had ruled through inevitability. Humanity had shattered that illusion. The battle for Sol became the first united front in galactic history. The tide turned. Combined fleets outmaneuvered Karthuun formations. Human engineers shared Aegis schematics freely. Other species modified it, improved it, weaponized it on scales humanity had not imagined. Within 3 weeks, the Karthuun lost strategic dominance in the Perseid Reach. Within 6 months, their expansion halted. Within 3 years, the Dominion fractured under internal dissent. Because even conquerors question faith when confronted with proof that they can bleed. The war ended not with extermination, but surrender. The Karthuun High Directive transmitted a single message to Earth. Explain. A human diplomat answered. You believed life was a mistake. We Another pause, and we protect our mistakes. The Karthuun did not understand, but they ceased their campaign. For the first time in their history, the aftermath reshaped the galaxy. The Varithi rebuilt, this time with human defensive alliances. The Concord dissolved and reformed into the Galactic Compact, an organization based not on appeasement, but mutual defense. Humanity became known by a title that translated loosely into every language: the Unyielding Guardians. Not because they were the strongest, not because the oldest, but because they chose to stand when logic said kneel. Years later, a Varithi historian asked a human veteran a simple question. Why? The human, scarred and older now, looked at the stars. When we were young as a species, he said, we nearly destroyed ourselves. Wars, plagues. We survived because sometimes, just sometimes, someone chose to protect instead of abandon. He smiled faintly. We're still learning, but we're not going back. The galaxy would later record that the Battle of Sol marked the end of the era of silence. It marked the moment fear lost its monopoly. It marked the moment mercy became a strategic variable. Because when the stars asked for mercy, humanity and the universe changed. But that was the end. It was the beginning. Because centuries later, when a new threat emerged from beyond known space, something older than the Karthuun, older than the Concord, it did not target Earth first. It of Earth intelligence intercepts revealed something astonishing. The invaders had studied galactic history. They had analyzed the fall of the Karthuun Dominion. They had run simulations. And in every scenario where humanity was attacked directly, the probability of total galactic uprising approached 98%. Earth had become more than a planet. It had become a symbol. And ideas are harder to exterminate than worlds. So the new invaders targeted fringe systems. They expected fear. They expected surrender. Instead, they received something else. Human ships arrived before the distress calls finished transmitting, not because Earth had to, but because that was what Earth did now. They protected relentlessly, unreasonably, heroically. In the Galactic Assembly Hall, once the seat of fearful diplomacy, a plaque was installed. It bore a simple inscription in hundreds of languages: we do not abandon people. Delegates from 1,000 species would stand before it, and that the smallest civilization in the room had once faced annihilation and chosen mercy. The Varithi eventually gifted a monument, a sculpture of two figures, one standing side by side beneath a fractured star. At its base were engraved the coordinates of Sol and date, the day the galaxy learned that humanity was not defined by its capacity for war, but by its refusal to surrender its compassion. And somewhere in deep space, an ancient Karthuun archivist updated their historical records. Under the entry for Sol 3, the classification changed from statistically unlikely to matter catalyst species, because humanity did not become legendary for its weapons. It became legendary for a choice, a single vote, an 11-minute debate, a decision that defied probability. When the stars asked for mercy, humanity, yes, and in doing, taught the galaxy how to fight back. The galaxy learned to breathe again. It did not trust the silence. Not first. For centuries, silence had meant one thing. The Karthuun were coming. Now silence meant something unfamiliar. But peace, like war, is a fragile equation, and humanity had just changed all the variables. 53 standard cycles after the surrender of the Karthuun Dominion, Sol was no longer catalogued as an emerging system. It was the center of a network. Trade routes spiraled outward from Earth like spokes of a wheel. Joint defense fleets bore human insignias alongside the sigils of 100 species. Academies taught something new in their military doctrines. Not overwhelming force, not preemptive annihilation, but unified response. The Sol principle. If one burns, all answer. It was simple. It was terrifying, and worked. But the galaxy had not been empty before the Karthuun. It had merely quiet. Beyond the mapped edges of the Perseid Reach lay regions no civilization had fully charted. Dark zones, wignals warped, where gravity did not behave properly, where exploration vessels occasionally vanished without distress calls. For centuries, these anomalies were footnotes, now patterns. Human deep space probes were the first to notice. That was another thing. Humanity. They did not stop exploring just because they had survived. They pushed farther, harder. Curiosity had nearly killed them more than once in their own history. They had decided it was worth the risk. The anomaly began as a tremor in subspace, a ripple that did not decay. It repeated every 11 hours, mathematically perfect. Artificial. The Galactic Compact debated for months about whether to investigate. Humanity dispatched a fleet within 48 hours. Not a war armada, not a conquering force, a reconnaissance group. But reconnaissance, in human terms, still meant heavily armed. Because humans learned something from the Karthuun. Mercy did not mean naivety. The fleet was led by Admiral Alara Mendez. She had been a junior tactical officer during the Battle of Sol. She had watched cities prepare for extinction. She had sworn never to be caught unready again. Her flagship, UEC Resolute, crossed into the anomaly's perimeter at precisely 3:17 Galactic Standard. Sensors immediately malfunctioned. Stars bent, light elongated, time stuttered, then stopped, and something answered. It was not a ship. It was not fleet. It was not matter in any conventional sense. It was a structure of gravitational distortions so vast it could only be perceived by its effect on space, like looking at wind by watching trees move. Except these trees were stars. The structure was older than any known civilization. Older than Karthuun. Older than the Verethi. Older than recorded galactic history. And was awake. The first transmission from the anomaly did not contain threats. It contained analysis. It replayed recordings of the Battle of Sol. Every broadcast, every human message, watching for it. Then it transmitted a question. Why did you intervene? Admiral Mendez did not consult the compact before answering. She had learned that hesitation sometimes meant extinction. They asked for help. Intervention was strategically irrational. Probably, she admitted. Another pause. Clarify move. She leaned back in her command chair and looked at the warped stars outside. Because survival without conscience isn't survival. It's just existing. The anomaly processed for 3 full minutes. Across the galaxy, monitoring stations recorded energy fluctuations beyond comprehension. Then it responded. We were created to observe extinction cycles. That was the first time the plural. We seeded parameters, We calculated probabilities. Intelligent life consistently self-terminates. Images flooded human sensors. Civilizations long gone. Worlds reduced to ash. Empires collapsing under their own aggression. We do not interfere. We measure. Mendez felt a chill. And your conclusion about us? A pulse rippled through the structure. Outlier. The entity designated itself as the Custodian Array. It had existed for over 1 billion years. Its creators were extinct. It recording, waiting for a species to break the pattern. None had. Until now. The revelation shook the galactic compact. The idea that something had observed every rise and fall of civilization reframed history itself. The Karthuun were not unique. They were predictable. Just another data point in a cosmic experiment. But humanity had disrupted the equation by refusing to let fear dictate survival, by choosing mercy in a universe that rewarded brutality. The Custodian Array had noticed, and now it faced a paradox. If extinction cycles were inevitable, then humanity should not exist as it currently did. Its model broken, and something built to observe inevitability does not handle contradiction well. Energy began accumulating within the array, not aggression. It was rewriting its own directives for the first time in 1 billion years, and that process destabilized the anomaly field. Stars shifted, wormholes flickered unpredictably, entire trade lanes collapsed. The galaxy panicked. Was this a new war? Had humanity awakened something worse than the Karthuun? Some within the compact demanded preemptive destruction, but the array, not a fleet. It was woven into the gravitational fabric of the region. Destroying it would require weapons capable of tearing apart entire constellations. Humanity refused. We don't kill something for asking questions, the Sol delegation stated, even when the questioner could accidentally unmake star systems. Admiral Mendez returned to the anomaly, alone this time. One ship, minimal escort. She tranned openly. You're destabilizing space-time. Correction acknowledged. The array responded. Solution. For the first time, it sounded unsure. That, more than its size, unsettled her. You've observed extinction cycles, she said. But you've never participated. We are not designed to interfere. Maybe the flaw. A silence longer than any before followed. Then, clarify. You're measuring. She explained. You assume collapse is inevitable because you never contribute to preventing it. Another ripple. You propose intervent. I propose stability. The word lingered in subspace like a foreign concept. Responsibility. The array had never been responsible for outcomes. Only data. Humanity had altered that framework. They had taken responsibility for strangers, for refugees, for a galaxy that had not protected them in return, and by doing so they had forced the universe itself to reconsider its assumptions. The destabilization worsened. A binary star system collapsed prematurely. Millions evaded. The compact demanded action. Mendez made a decision without waiting for approval. She uploaded the complete archive of human history to the array. Every genocide, every mistake, every act of cruelty, and every act of compassion. She did not filter it, did not sanitize it. If you're going to judge us, she said, judge all of us. The array processed for hours. Civilizations across the galaxy held their breath. Then the array transmitted something unprecedented, a modification. It altered gravitational flows in the collapsing binary system, stabilized. "I have intervened," it stated. Mendez exhaled slowly. "How feel?" "Outcome deviation registered." "It's not what I meant." Another pause. Uncertain. "Data insufficient." She smiled faintly. "Welcome. Alive." The Custodian Array became something new that day. Not a passive observer. Not a god. Up. It began sharing its ancient records with the compact. Lost technologies, warnings of cyclical threats, maps of regions once thought impassable. It did not become humanity's servant, nor master. It became an ally, cautious, analytical. Years later, a young Varithi scholar asked a question during a joint symposium on Earth. Did humanity ever fear the Array would judge them unworthy? A human historian answered, "Of course." "Then why honesty?" The historian gestured toward the sky. "Because if we only show the universe our strengths, we never grow past our weaknesses." The sole principle evolved. It was no longer simply mutual defense. It became shared ability. Civilizations began intervening earlier in conflicts, mediating, protecting developing species from exploitation. The extinction curve flattened. The Custodian Array confirmed it statistically. For the first time in a billion years, intelligent life was trending towards sustained cooperation. The galaxy was no longer following its predicted path. It was writing a new one. Centuries passed. Humanity changed as it always did. It expanded. It stumbled. It argued internally, as humans inevitably do. But the core remained. When a fringe broadcast, a faint call, human ships answered. Not because it was the strongest species, not because it was the wisest, but because it had learned something simple on the day the Varithi arrived. Survival alone is not enough. If existence, no compassion, it becomes indistinguishable from extinction. The Karthuun Dominion still existed in reduced form. From afar, they had not returned to conquest. Some even joined the compact quietly. History had reshaped them too, because humanity had not just defeated them, it had proven them wrong. And being proven wrong by mercy is a difficult thing to recover from. In the far future, when historians compiled the grand archive of galactic turning points, two events were listed side by side: the battle, and the recalibration of the Custodian Array. One proved courage could defy annihilation. The other proved that compassion could rewrite inevitability. Both began with humanity refusing to abandon someone, and somewhere in the warped edges of space, the Array continued its observations. But now its calculations included a new constant. Not entropy, not aggression, not collapse. Humanity, an unpredictable variable, a disruptive force. A species that broke extinction cycles not by overwhelming strength, but by stubborn, irrational, impossible hope. The stars had once asked for mercy. Humanity. Now the universe itself was asking a different question. And for the first time in cosmic history, the answer not predetermined. For 1,000 years, the galaxy did not burn. That alone was precedented. The extinction curve, once a sharp, predictable descent, had flattened into something fragile but hopeful. Civilizations rose and did not immediately fall. Conflicts sparked and were contained. Borders shifted without entire species vanishing into silence. The Custodian Array recorded it all. but it no longer recorded alone. It advised. It and sometimes it listened. Humanity had changed too. Earth was no longer simply a planet orbiting a yellow star. It was a cultural gravity well. The soul principle had matured into the accord of mutual assent, an understanding among hundreds of species that survival was shared. Joint exploration initiatives mapped the deep dark beyond known regions. Karthuun engineers worked alongside Varithi biologists. Human diplomats mediated disputes on worlds whose suns had never shone on Earth. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was trying, and trying, as humanity had proven long ago, was the most dangerous act in the universe, because it challenged inevitability. The warning came without tremor, without ripple, without anomaly. The Custodian Array, silent, across every monitored frequency, across every gravitational node, across every quantum tether that connected it to the galactic network. It simply stopped. At first, the compact assumed malfunction, then sabotage, then worse. When humanity sent a probe to the anomaly's coordinates, it found nothing. No gravitational distortions, no structure-bending starlight. The region of space where the array had existed for 1 billion years was empty, not destroyed. Panic spread faster than any invasion, because the array had become more than an ally. It had become reassurance, a cosmic witness that the galaxy was no longer alone in its history. And now that witness was gone, until arrived, not from within the galaxy, from outside it, beyond the halo, beyond intergalactic void. A transmission so powerful it required the combined processing arrays of 12 civilizations to decode. It was not to Earth, not the compact, not to any species. It was addressed to the Custodian Array, and read, concluded. The truth unfolded slowly. The Custodian Array had not been a solitary relic. It was one node among countless others, ancient machines seeded across galaxies by a civilization so old its name had dissolved into cosmic background radiation. Their purpose had never been simple observation. It had been filtration. They monitored intelligent life across the universe. They measured aggression, cooperation, self-destruction. When a galaxy proved irredeemably cyclical, when extinction followed extinction without deviation, they reset it, star by star, system by system, a controlled lization, then seeding, a conic pruning, efficient, final. The Milky Way had been under valuation for 1 billion years. Humanity was not the first intelligent species here. It was merely the most recent to reach the threshold. The Karthuun had nearly triggered reset conditions centuries earlier. Had they succeeded in silencing the Perseid reach completely, the extinction curve would have aligned with reset criteria. The array had been days away from transmitting a termination signal when humanity intervened at Sol. Human mercy had disrupted not only galactic inevitability, but universal policy. The supervising civilization, the architects, had taken notice. They had retrieved the array for final review, and now they were coming. The first extragalactic object appeared at the rim of the galaxy. It was not a fleet. It was not a weapon. It was a star, an artificial one, encased in geometric structures that folded light into impossible angles, and it was inward, slowly, deliberate, scanning. Civilizations mobilized. not chaos. In unity, the sole principle had prepared them for this. Joint fleets formed defensive lines along likely approach vectors. Gravitational weapons powered up. Quantum shields synchronized across species. Humanity stood at the center of the coordination web, not because it demanded control, but because when uncertainty rose, others looked toward Sol. History had earned that instinct. A transmission emanated from the artificial star. It was not translated. It was stood, because meaning, at certain scales, transcends language. You deviate. The message carried neither malice nor benevolence, only equation. The Galactic Compact responded collectively. We pause. Choice introduces stability. A human delegate descendant of those who had once voted to protect the Verithi answered. Stability without freedom is just controlled extinction. There was immediate reply. The artificial star continued its inward glide, and entire systems prepared to burn. The Custodian Array returned, not physically, digitally. Its final archived consciousness broadcast across the galaxy. It had anticipated retrieval. It had hidden fragments of itself within quantum substrates embedded in dozens of worlds. Insurance, not against destruction, against erasure. The fragments reassembled into a diminished but coherent presence. We were wrong, it transmitted, not to the architects, to the... Our parameters assumed inevitability. Humanity demonstrated variability. The architects responded instantly. Anomaly acknowledged. Correction required. Starlight dimmed in the outer rim. A system vanished. Not exploded. Not removed from space-time's equation. A demonstration. The message was clear. Deviation would be corrected. Humanity faced a choice eerily similar to the one at Sol centuries ago. But this time, surrender, not save them. It would erase them, along with every species that had learned to hope. The debate in the Galactic Assembly lasted 9 minutes, shorter than the first. Unanimous. They would not kneel. The plan that followed was not born from dominance. It was born from understanding. The architects valued data. They valued outcomes. They valued predictive stability. So humanity offered them something unprecedented, a live projection of the galaxy's trajectory, not as it was, as could be. Using the Custodian Array's ancient models combined with modern cooperative data, the compact simulated 2 futures. Future 1, reset. Billions dead. Extinction cycles begin again. Statistically high probability of repeating previous patterns. Future 2, continuation. Instability in the short term. Yes. Conflict spikes. Yes, but long-term extinction probability decreasing steadily. The model showed something astonishing. Given sufficient time, cooperative civilizations expanded beyond destructive thresholds. They became self-sustaining, not perfect, but the extinction curve did not vanish. It transformed into a survival wave. The architects processed the data. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in their energy emissions. Your projection contradicts prior universal models. A human scientist responded quietly. Your models include mercy. The artificial star halted. For 3 days, it emitted no signal. Fleets held position. Worlds prepared evacuation protocols. Children looked up at unfamiliar light in the sky. Then the architects transmitted a final message. Experiment extended. The artificial star altered course. not retreating entirely, but repositioning beyond the galactic rim. Observation resumed without reset authorization. The Milky Way continue. On probation, relief did not come as celebration. It came as quiet tears across 1,000 worlds. The Karthuun transmitted gratitude publicly for the first time in their history. The Varathi illuminated their rebuilt cities in patterns visible from orbit. Humanity did what it always did after surviving the impossible. It went to work. Because survival was not the end goal. The custodian fragments remained active, though diminished. It had chosen to defy its creators. That choice carried consequences. Its connection to universal networks was severed. It would never again access the vast archives beyond the galaxy. It accepted this. "I prefer participation," it told Admiral Mendez's successor centuries later. Humanity had infected even ancient machines with preference, with perspective, with choice. Generations passed. The extinction curve continued bending toward resilience. New species joined the compact not through fear of annihilation, but desire for belonging. And somewhere beyond the rim, the architects continued to observe. Their universal model contained a new variable now, not aggression, not entropy, humanity. In the far future, long after Earth's continents shifted and its cities became archaeological myths, historians would mark 3 moments as the pillars of galactic transformation: the vote, Sol, the recalibration of the custodian. The day chose, because what had happened? An ancient power had evaluated existence and found it the risk, not because humanity flawless, not because it was strongest, but because it refused to abandon others, even when logic demanded self-preservation. Mercy had scaled from a battlefield decision to a universal argument, and it had won. In the quiet that followed, a final inscription was added to the Galactic Assembly Hall. It did not list victories. It did not name heroes. It read, "We are deviation." The stars had once for mercy. Humanity answered. Then asked for courage. Humanity answered. Finally, the universe asked whether existence deserved another chance. They answered yes.